invented a whole new method of pest control, completely changing an entire industry. Her products made it safe for kids, pets, and the environment. Until then, pest control was nothing but poison. Who is she? Carrie Warburg Block. She's executive chair and founder of EarthKind. Under her leadership, EarthKind became the first to achieve EPA registration for plant-based rodent repellent. She's an award-winning entrepreneur, former White House policy advisor, and the voice behind Peace Over Poison. You're going to love her story of success through failure, and how she managed to completely change an entire industry. Welcome to Think on This Leadership. I'm your host, Eddie Burns, and I'm thrilled to have Carrie Warburg Block as my guest. She has an amazing story of business and personal success, but it didn't come without a lot of trials and tribulations. Hello, Carrie.
Hey, Eddie.
We recorded this a couple weeks ago, and there were some technical glitches, my fault, and she agreed to re-record this, which I'm forever grateful. And, that's the kind of leader she is in her company. So thank you.
Yeah, you are most welcome.
I love your story. You've had a lot of ups and downs, and life has hit you pretty darn hard at times. You've had a number of failed businesses. You've been beaten down by competition, by people, and by nature. You've been on welfare. You've experienced deep, dark depression, and on and on. Basically, you've been through the ringer and have made it to the other side to show that it can be done. And that's what I love about your story. So anyway, tell us all about EarthKind.
So, EarthKind was originally formed in the mid 90s on a simple belief that mice needed a home, but not in my tractor cab. We could not keep them out of the tractor cabs. I didn't want to use poisons. I didn't want to do anything that would impact, my kids or my pets or do any harm. And so I came up with an invention called Fresh Cab, and Fresh Cab is really just our catapulted us into a whole new thing that I would have never even knew it would go this far.
Wow.
There's just a sachet inside of a pouch. This little sachet is filled with essential oils and plant fibers, and you just toss it into the tractor cab, and that's how it all started, and it keeps the mice out. And today it's used in government buildings and all kinds of places.
It doesn't hurt the mice, right?
They're part of the whole ecosystem. But when I found out about 8% of all household fires are attributed to mice chewing on wires.
Really?
Yeah, there's thousands and thousands of dogs that are poisoned accidentally each year from eating a rodent that's ingested like a poison, right? There's babies that are bitten and elderly that are bitten by mice and rats, and there really wasn't an effective way to keep them out. So what was really different about what I did is I had like the seriousness of the damage and the risk to humans. They're public health risk pets.
Right.
But on the other hand, they had this role to play in the ecosystem that supported us, as humans and as farmers. So it kind of birthed up this whole new, I had to do something that was both effective and safe.
So tell me about how many stores are you in and how many employees do you have?
Sure. We're in about 35,000 stores across the US. And the goal was really to make this product available to any household at a price they could afford and make it so easy that it would become the go-to choice instead of a toxic poison. So that really informed the strategy of going brick and mortar retail. So about 35,000 of those. And then we're also available online and through Amazon and Grove and Thrive as well. As far as employees, we have 35 to 40, something like that, in our factory in Mooresville, North Carolina.
You've gotten countless awards. I mean, I've seen them. You've got a award for best new product, award for top women led business, best place to work award, and so many more. What would you say is your most important or favorite achievement?
Culture, and it's made up of all of the people. It's our team. It's the people we work with. Earthkind is a top place to work. And last year in our Charlotte region, we got the award of #1 in work-life balance, which matters a lot to me because I always wanted to build a company that I wanted to work for.
Mhm.
All the jobs I had, I was the peon that did all the work, got paid like crap, work long
Yeah.
hours. I didn't get my breaks.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. So, I read your book, and let me show it right here. Just
Mm.
a wonderful book. It is Gathering Around the Table, a story of purpose-driven change through business. So I highly, highly recommend it. I read it twice. First time a couple years ago, and then I reread it recently. And I'll tell you, and I mentioned this to you before, but there are so many golden nuggets in this. So thank you for writing it. You talk about that you didn't think you were good at anything. You didn't aspire to be anything like a lot of kids. They want to be a fireman or whatever. And you felt different than the other kids. You moved every year, so you really didn't have a chance to connect, and so you didn't feel like you belonged. There were a lot of things going on, and then your mom passed away when you were very young. Tell us a little bit more about what young Carrie was like.
So the whole thing of belonging, young Carrie didn't feel like she belonged. I went to a different school every year of my life, so I'd enter in and I really didn't belong. There was cliques. Some of the schools I was the weirdo, and some of the schools I was the cool one with the, New Jersey accent. But I didn't get a chance to really participate in sports, join clubs, build relationships with other kids, which I think are so important for us as we're growing up to define the sense of who we are. There wasn't internet and all that kind of stuff. There was only 3 channels on TV, if a person even had one. So
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in encyclopedias because I love to learn, and that was something that we had. I spent a lot of time in nature, and I spent a lot of time on my bike and in swimming pools and challenging myself at all the time. So some of those basic traits still exist from
Yeah.
what I was born to what I am today, because I just always had this high need to achieve. But I'm not as scared of taking risks, I guess you could say, too.
To be an entrepreneur, to start a business, you have to take a lot of risk, right? Because there's so many
Yeah.
unknowns. So you started working at a very young age, 12, I believe, which I did too. And you learned a very valuable lesson from your dad, actually more than one. One was about working, and the other was about people. What did you learn from your dad?
Oh, my dad was just the most amazing man. He died at 52. He died from cancer. Um, which he attributes to, chemicals and poisons in the environment. He was somewhat of a scientist. My dad loved people so much, and I saw what he did because of that love, that he had helped like fix kids' teeth on with parents that couldn't afford it. He'd help people with cars. And so I learned a lot about behavior. His employees loved him, and
Hmm.
they worked so hard for him, and he didn't have problems with turnover, and it was something I was like, wow, I want that too if I go into business. Social capital really isn't measured on a balance sheet. Natural capital isn't measured on a balance sheet. And that stuff literally pays it forward. And there's getting to be more evidence of that too. And I've seen it
Really?
throughout my life. You can take a misfit and put them into an environment of care and belonging, and what they can become is good, and so like this whole incarceration thing, it really needs to be rethought. And likewise, you can take a good person raised in a good family and put them into a seedy environment, and they can start making choices otherwise. So the way
Yeah.
we belong, I think it begs a lot more research. And thankfully, there was a university that did a case study on Earthkind, and it was like our first 5 million in revenues. And they won #1 entrepreneurial case study in the world, and they won like $2 million from Microsoft. It was like a groundbreaking case study taught around the
Wow.
world. Um, and
Wow.
now, up until that time, the only female protagonists are those were the billionaires, and they had money to start with. And I know people sitting there are going to go, "Oh yeah, that's easy," but what about the money? Well, here's the thing. We're a debt-free company. We grew without outside capital until we 10, 12 million. I'm like, I need strategic help. So it was like the smart money. So I found an investor that had grown and scaled to 600 million in an organic space, started a whole new category, worked with farmers, treated the farmers, lifted everybody up along the way. So we got our first investor then, but it's not something that they teach you in college. You're supposed to like get the investor, grow as fast as you can, sell it out.
Ale.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but what
Yeah.
happens is the big are getting bigger, and then it makes it harder too for the small niche ones to make it, and they call it the missing middle. Once companies get up to that middle stage,
Uh-huh.
and most of them sell out, go out of business, drop out at that time. And, I wanted ours to survive through that, to really
Hmm.
become a business that's big enough to hold everybody's dreams.
Getting back to your dad and when you left hospitality school, you wanted to work for your dad. And he said no. And it was one of the periods in your life where you just like, oh, you felt heartbroken that he said no. And you kind of went through one of those periods of struggle. What's my purpose? Do I have a plan? You just felt kind of alone, I think. So it was a tough period. First of all, why did your dad say no? Then talk more about that period and how did you get past all of that?
Yeah, I asked him why he said no. And he said, because it's harder than you think. And he said, if there's the most difficult job in a business is dealing with the people. And I think he was reflecting, where he was at the time. But for me, I was thinking, I think that's the most exciting thing.
You got to a point, you were a young adult, a parent, you went back to college, I believe, and you were on welfare and on the dean's list. How in the world did you manage all of that? I mean, a single mom, and what you have two kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I got married. It was a short-lived marriage. He really wasn't in it, the responsibility of it.
Mhm.
And so I knew I had to do better for these kids. So I went back to school and decided to go into home economics and was going to be a teacher. And I went to the college and I was so brave and I said, this is where I am. And I really don't, I want to give my kids a better life and I have no money to start with. And before that day was over, they called me from the admissions office and said, we have a wealthy donor that's going to pay for the next year of college. If you get good grades, they will continue to pay for it. So it really helped me a lot, right? And I went, I went to the welfare office and said, well, now I still need, I'm still going to need some care over my head. Is this, the housing help? Is this money going to dock me from that? So I learned so much about the support systems for single moms that want to do better. And I really wanted my kids to see me working. I wanted my
Yeah.
kids to see me um, living for something other than just, myself, or no, I got to stay home because my check will be bigger. And I just didn't, really didn't love them too much to have them grow up in that way.
Let's talk about your turning point and get into purpose. Talk about that time where there was that accident, you got injured, and I think maybe right before that, you had, your tomato plants got eaten or beat up by hail, and the rats got into your bra drawer and things like that. And I'm getting the timing a little mixed up, but there was this period there where it was hard. And then you you had some stuff come to
Mhm.
mind that got you to the other side of that. So if you can kind of blend all that together, I would
Yeah, it was
appreciate the
it
help.
was one of those years in my life that is probably like we'll never forget. So
Hmm.
1995. So
Okay.
it was yeah, on July 8th I actually died for 3 minutes. I had a broken femur and I was selling organic produce at a farmer's market. And so I spent a year on my back. And of course, we
What
didn't have
happened?
money and
This lady on a motorcycle ran into you.
ran
Yeah.
into the table and I was in between the table and another table and it just basically sliced my leg, broke it. But I had about two acres of stuff out there that I was going to harvest, and church ladies thankfully came over. But only a couple months later, then we got hailed out. Everything in the garden, everything in the county was hailed out except for a square about 10 by 10, which was my
And
son's garden. And my grandma, which would be my mom's mother, died on the same day.
wow.
Yeah. And it was like one thing after the other, after the other, after the other. And
Hmm.
basically everything was stripped away from me because I couldn't walk. I mean, thank God I was still alive, but it took a long time to do that. Our whole entire source of income, everything we had was basically ruined and destroyed. I lost the connection of, the people that were still living. Um,
Hmm.
and they died. And then, I'm laying there on my back for almost a year thinking
And you
about,
were in the hospital for a lot of it, right?
yeah, I was
Or
in the
were you?
hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a result, I didn't see anything, when I was on the other side, and my doctor saw an angel above the bed and he was an atheist. It freaked him out. He left medicine, but he said, you have a very important reason to be here and do not waste it. And that was the last conversation I had with him. And he moved back to Germany, where he's from, and changed his whole life. But after that, I started
Oh,
really
hey, so
questioning.
let's get on that. So the doctor that saved your life was an atheist. He didn't believe in
Hmm.
God or anything, not even
Hmm.
something greater than him, right? And he saw
Yes.
an angel above your body as he was doing his thing, and it freaked him out so bad. He quit medicine and went back to do something else, right?
Yeah, he said, you shouldn't be alive. I don't know why you're alive, but obviously you have a purpose here and you have something that you need to do. And
Hmm.
so of course I question and I'm like, "Tell me, what'd you see? What was it like? What
Yeah,
happened?"
right, of course.
And all he said was it took up the whole room above the ceiling. It was kind of gray, white in color. And he said, you had blood flying everywhere. You had like 7 people struggling to put you together and to get enough blood in you. And it all happened so fast. And so
Wow.
it was, I wasn't expected to live and I'm glad that I did, but that changes a person, right? Because
Sure.
and then when I woke up in bed, in the hospital, I saw all these people around my bed and they're laughing hysterically. And I was like, what that. This is like I was really offended by this. And it was all the people that had deceased and passed away from my family. And I saw them there. And I was like, wow, this like I'm really hallucinating or something, right? But I saw this one guy and I'm like, who's that? And they're like, that's Dwayne. So I started asking my family, and it turns out there was a Dwayne that was shot and killed by a brother, and it was a family secret and nobody talked about it. So I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew that there was something to it. So it really impacted me, especially in business, because I thought, wow, our families are watching. We can't see them, but I think they're watching. So every time I'd have a tough conversation with an employee or anybody, I always went at it from the standpoint of their families are around them, loving them,
Wow.
caring for
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
wanting what's in their best interest. So it really helped, inform me whether I could see them or not, it helped that, hey, all of us have somebody, our families that love us and want the best for
Mhm.
us. And
Yeah. Wow, what an incredible experience. So you, from that and your doctor and being out of commission for a while, you had quite an epiphany, right?
yeah, so it really was quite a year, and you just look at, I guess I needed the time on my back to heal because I had to have several surgeries afterwards. But you really start looking at, wow, why am I here? So I was like, well, what's the most audacious thing I could do that I'm here that nobody else in the world can do? And that's really the purpose. That's where people can connect to that purpose, is to think, what am I uniquely anointed to do because of all of the stuff, right? All of it.
Right,
And what
right,
is it that
right.
only I can do? And I'm thinking, well, pests aren't sexy, but hey, they're a
Yeah.
problem. And then one thing led to the other, and
In your turning point, you have a great quote in your book. I love it. The universe was screaming at me. I had to do something. I was either going to go crazy or needed to start looking at things from a different angle. How profound is that? And I take it that's kind of what you did, right?
yeah. Yeah, basically, laying on your back, you're kind of forced to because there's something.
Yeah.
You're totally dependent. I lost, everything. We didn't have air conditioning. We had running water, but we had to hook a hose up to get it. And
Yeah.
it's it's just like really, really humbling. And then the question was, well, hey, what if the universe is doing this for me, not to
Hmm.
me? And it was just this shift when I went, okay, well, maybe it uniquely anoints me to do something that only I can do because of all of these, situations. But really it is. You're harvesting all of these experiences that you have, or seeds of life, rooting them into something that well, I call it love, rooting
Yeah.
them in love
Right.
and purpose, and they can grow and
Right.
turn into something amazing.
So, and you've got another quote that I love regarding all of this. When there is something you are complaining about or criticizing and condemning, there is something calling there. There is a calling you need to look at to find purpose. The
Yeah.
pesky little mice just might be anointing my purpose, like you just said, right?
Yeah. And there's this thing, what you resist persists.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
anytime I find people criticize, condemn, or complain, there's something under the surface that begs to be looked at. Because oftentimes it speaks to their personality. Like if, say, for instance, somebody wants coffee's too hot, you know, maybe they
Yeah.
need to start a chain of only cold coffee, right? There's just something, if they find themselves complaining over and over about something, or something really irks you and gets under your skin, to me, that is like a prime opportunity for a business, because chances are other people have that same penchant.
Right, right. Yeah, and you say further on, when you're in a state of suffering, reframe how you see it. On the other side, there's some kind of freedom. Sometimes it's the universe screaming at you, making you uncomfortable. So you do something about your situation and your voice. And the voice you're hearing might be a quiet whisper or a booming echo, and it's called purpose. You should listen to it. How cool. I mean, so you've learned a lot about your purpose in life, purpose in life and purpose in business and just all the way around. And it came through, I hate to say it this way, but it came through suffering, right?
Yeah. Yes, it did. The people who have really suffered the most, if you look at the books they've written, the songs they've written, the great works of art they've created, the businesses they've created out of that suffering,
Hmm.
it's undeniable that it's an energy that can be harvested and transformed in the world. And I just happen to think, that's really what we do as humans. In some way, we're healing ourselves and healing those around us with what we do. Yeah, case in point. I mean, there's standing on your values, especially, is something that really helps. But I think back years, and it's in the book too, about saying no to Walmart.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know,
Tell us about
it
that.
was I went in, we got the contract. I didn't hear from them for a while. When I heard back, they come back and the price was like 20 or 22% higher than the price I quoted. And I said, I can't sell to you for that. And they said, well, that's how we do business. And I said, well, I gave you the very best price I had the first time out. That was the deal. And it was, well,
Mhm.
just do business in, go to Mexico or something. And I was like, I'm not in business to employ a third world country. It didn't stand for, what we had. And I thought my employees would be really upset because they're like, oh my God, I can see the bonus now, right? Get all this new business.
Right.
And, it was really scary to come back and say, hey, I turned it down because the money just, it wasn't there. And they supported me on that. But I've said no to, one retailer said, well, I'll put you on end caps if you put a clamshell package on your product and make it look more like China made. And you can make it in China and you're going to get scale that way. And I remember them, and I said, no, it goes against our values. And they said, no offense, but you're not going to make it in business if you don't get what the retailer needs. And I said, to me, it's more about what the customer needs. And I want to build a brand that is going to be enduring for all these years later. Well,
Wow.
lo and behold, years later, because of those decisions, we're getting the end caps now because the time is here and people, we've built enough awareness and people can come in and find that product and buy it. But those are some of the things I talk about in the book, and the ways of making decisions from your values, not just money.
Right.
Make
Right.
this see.
I mean, you must have been so grounded or rooted in your values
Yeah.
to make that decision.
And I happen to think too, every business has its right growth rate. And over our first 10 years, we grew 45% on average, year over year over year. Year.
Wow.
And over the last 8, I just looked at it a week or so ago, and it was more like 22% average year over year over year. Um,
Okay.
but, we were profitable. We had strong cash flows. We're a good place to work. We were still growing triple digits with our category was growing. So
Hmm.
to me, I saw that as good. But our investor, for instance, is like, that really doesn't excite me. I think we could go faster, grow bigger. And, for some reason, it just everything that we've tried and it's sound things really didn't give us any more momentum than if they would have happened through the relationships and organic. And the best things we've had for growth have come from employees.
What do you mean? How?
Well, for instance, I can grab like up on our cartons, right on the back. One of my handicapable employees said, "Why don't you sign your products? Aren't you proud of it?" So I started signing my products, and it became something that the customers really liked and they could trust, right? I asked my employees, "What's important to you?" Well, the ingredients. So I put ingredients before brand on the package. Any branding, yeah, branding people would say, "You're stupid," whatever, whatever. But still, we had, the top repellent in the category. We had the top turns in the category. We had good margins. So, you can't say that it's all wrong, but it's kind of a cool thing with branding because in the end of the day, to me, especially a purpose-driven brand, it's really driven by that. You have this vision and it almost pulls you towards it, and then it's defined by the decisions you make. And so I, asked employees what they think, and it's helped a lot in making some of those decisions. And then I keep it really simple too. What is the cost of customer conversion and what is the return on our ad spend? Right?
Right, right,
I always keep those things forefront because we built our model on cash flow, which was
right.
cash flow. I knew with the model we had, we could grow 40% off cash flows without outside capital. And I knew we could
Oh.
spend 10% on innovation and new products, right?
Hmm.
And I knew we wouldn't have turnover, so we didn't have that cost.
And so you were very disciplined. I mean, that takes a lot of discipline to stick with that, right?
Yeah, the thorn part for me, the hard thing I've never really been able to do is build an in-house sales team that
Hmm.
um, could do it, because I was still leading
Right.
sales up until I think 2 years ago, something like that. And we really didn't need an in-house salesperson because people came to us. But it all changed because then the whole Procter and Gamble came in. I was always the closer, I guess, more as the
Okay.
leader of the company, and I'd say, this is what we can deliver. And then they would take my word. And of course, I, made the promise, this is what we deliver. And then what I do is say, help me put together the best team for your account. And the customers would help me do that. But I closed them because I found each retailer has a different market, a different niche. They have their favorite people they like to work with. And so I'd rely on, just give me 2 or 3 names of people that you think could really farm the account.
Hey, folks, I'm going to interrupt here for a second. First of all, to say thank you for watching and listening to this podcast. And secondly, the video portion of this podcast got glitchy. There were some problems uploading or downloading, but we do have the audio. So I'm going to put up a graphic and we will continue the remainder of the podcast. And there's some really great questions that Carrie answers. And so if you enjoy this, please share it. Thanks. What was the most vulnerable part of your journey through your life from way back then to now?
I think, vulnerability is so important to me, and it plays into belonging. Because if you don't show the world who you are in an authentic way, you're not going to get the relationships and the belonging, that you want. For instance, as a kid, I wanted to be on the athletic teams and I wanted to win and I wanted to do all this. I thought I had to be really good so they would pick me for the team. And I didn't focus on, well, what position can I be really good at? What part of the team can I be really good at? So that's something I've learned more now, with the businesses and having teams, because that's not something I didn't build teams as a kid, and I wasn't in sports. So, I have to rely on those people that know how to build those teams. Our CEO said it's the best team he's ever worked with. And I feel really, good about that. They're amazing people.
So what does success mean to you now compared to when you started this whole thing?
Well, as a person ages, for sure, you start to think in terms of legacy and like what my father did, what he left with people, because in the end, since I died once, I like, okay, well, next time I take my last breath, I want to feel really good about what I did
Hmm.
and the contributions that I made.
Yeah. If you could speak to you just starting out, whether it's as a young kid or just starting the business, what wisdom would you share with yourself?
Well, I think as a little girl, it would be more of, life is happening for you, not to you. So be patient, because as a kid, I was like, why does this always have to happen to me? Why do we always have to move? And
Right.
once I quit doing that, everything just got so much better.
So, okay, just a couple more here. What would you tell someone who feels a pull to create something meaningful but doesn't feel qualified?
In that case, I would ask them to look for a coach. there's not a coach that they could afford, I would ask them to ask an entrepreneur. And I've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs, some, big billion-dollar entrepreneurs, and they tell me, and people don't ask enough.
Hmm.
The entrepreneurs have such good wisdom of, working with so many people over the time. A lot of times they can give you this nugget if you're ready to hear, put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they totally accept honesty and authenticity. They can, experienced business people and entrepreneurs can spot a bullshitter
Yep.
miles away. All you have to do is walk up and say, I have this thought and I may be crazy and I don't know what I'm doing. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
That authenticity, you will not get a no. I can just tell you that. If you do, you're probably asking the wrong entrepreneur. Most will always take time.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Cool. All right. So you had many failures, many businesses shattered. You emotionally had a lot of emotional turmoil because of various failures, traumas. If you had to pick three things that helped you along the way, what would they be?
Faith, number
Okay.
one, knowing that it's all going to be good in the end and that we'll always somehow get through.
Mm-hmm.
Family, again, in the end, is it's belonging and they can be always there for you. And then the last one would be mentors,
Would be
coaches,
what?
mentors and
Oh,
coaches.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of us spend more in our car than we spend on our own leadership.
So, what words of wisdom would you leave with a young college person? I know you meet with a lot of college people and speak to the groups. And so, what do you leave them with?
Well, my book answers all the questions that the college students have asked me
Uh-huh.
over the year. And the biggest question I get asked on college campuses is, how do I know what to do next? And so that's where I bring in, do an assessment of your values and your purpose, and start there, because then the path will start to become clear.
Yeah. 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 I had to do that as I was entering college, and the counselor came out kind of smiling and he said, well, according to this, you don't want to do anything. He
Isn't that
said,
funny? Maybe that's an entrepreneur, Eddie.
well, yeah. And he said, you got the baseline, everything was below that. But he said, if you look at what's highest below the baseline, it's more the, the helping people kind of stuff.
It's funny because when I graduated from high school and I had mine, and it was job service test, it had I should be an entrepreneur, something in manufacturing, I'd make a good teacher, or I'd make a good actuary, which is really funny because I am analytical and I can take huge complex things and break them down. And I was so mad at that stupid test because I was like, gosh, give me something better than this. And here I
Yeah.
am today, all these years later, doing those things.
So, Terry, thank you very much for being here. It was delightful. Do you have anything that you would like to leave the audience with?
Well, I could say peace be with you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Once again, I want to thank Carrie for taking time out to be with us. If you want to learn more about Carrie, you can go to her website. It's carriewarburgblock.com. And if you want to buy her book, which I highly suggest, you can go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or any of your favorite bookstores to find it. And again, thank you. If you like this, please share it. Appreciate it.